Moving on to Sunday is Nottingham Forest against Newcastle, 2 p.m. kickoff at the City Ground. Nottingham Forest are currently flying. They're third, just behind Liverpool and Man City, led by the goal-scoring exploits of Chris Wood. They've won each of their last 3 games, most recently beating West Ham 3-0 with a clinical display. For Newcastle, they had no midweek game, so they've had a week to prepare after beating Arsenal 1-0 at St James's Park. They've been quite an inconsistent side, difficult to predict in terms of their results, difficult to bet on because of that. But this is one of the games that I think really stands out for me this weekend. I think it has the potential to be quite an entertaining one. It's two sort of sides whose play styles marry up quite nicely to back goals. In terms of the injury report, we still have Danilo and Sangare out for Nottingham Forest, but Ward-Prowse is back. He was suspended, then he was left out of the squad, and then he was unavailable to face his parent club. He's back now, but I doubt he starts, just based on how well the duo of Ryan Yates and Dominguez have been performing in that holding midfield role. We did see Elliot Anderson drop to the bench when Morgan Gibbs-White returned in the last game, so I would imagine we see an unchanged midfield trio from Santo. There's no new injury concerns for Newcastle. We saw them obviously opt for a more defensive lineup against Arsenal with the extra midfielder. But with Jacob Murphy doubtful for this game, I would imagine that lineup stays very similar. Potentially we see Tonali reintroduced to the lineup as Willock was substituted early in that game, but I thought Willock performed really well. He's a fantastic asset in that midfield for Newcastle, so I think if Eddie Howe can get him to start, he will start. First angle for me is backing goals in this game. I think when I say the two play styles marry up nicely, what I mean by that is Forest are very, very effective on the break with the likes of Elanga, with the likes of Hudson-Odoi, Morgan Gibbs-White. They are a very effective counter-attacking team, and that is no surprise given that Espirito Santo is their manager. I think they can really exploit a Newcastle midfield and defence who are quite weak in transition. I think that's where their main vulnerability lies. I think they're a very physical side when they can sit in their defensive shape. They're brilliant, absolutely excellent team, Newcastle. But whenever you ask them to defend a transition is where they struggle. And that's where Forest's main strength lies. It's difficult to actually envision Forest keeping a clean sheet though against Newcastle, just because of how potent they are going forward as well, with the likes of Isak, Gordon, even Joe Linton, who's found a bit of good form this season. So first angle is actually for both teams to score, which is priced at 1.7, which is quite high for a Premier League game nowadays. I think you're normally looking at an average price of around 1.5, but goals seems to be a bit undervalued here. That's something that I'm looking to take advantage of. Also, both teams to score on over 2.5 goals is priced at 2.2. Again, wouldn't expect that market to be odds against. So I think it's a target. If we look into head-to-head matchups, these sides faced off in the EFL Cup earlier in the season, and that game finished 1 each at the City Ground, but it really could have been more because there were chances at either end. It also finished 3-2 to Newcastle at the City Ground last season. Bruno Guimaraes bagged a brace in that game. And 3-1 to Forest at St James's Park. So in both games, this away side prevailed in this matchup. And in that latter game, we obviously saw a memorable Chris Wood hat-trick. So goals is the first target for me here. Both teams to score at 1.7 as a minimum. But the next thing for me is to target fouls in midfield. So we will likely see the matchup between Ryan Yates and Bruno Guimaraes. We've got two players who are very aggressive in their duels, quite high foul counts, but they're also very effective at drawing fouls. Yates this season is averaging 1.64 fouls per 90. He made 4 fouls in the last head-to-head against Newcastle at the City Ground. But he's also drawing 2.77 fouls per 90 with 13 fouls drawn in his last 5 starts, playing the full 90 in each of those games. So he's one to target in that respect. For Bruno Guimaraes, his opposite number, he's the most fouled player in the league this season. Fouled at least twice in every single start, with an average of 4 fouls drawn per game. So pretty ridiculous numbers there for the Brazilian. He's actually also only behind Joe Linton on total fouls committed. He's averaging 1.43 fouls per 90 in the league, with at least 1 foul in 9 out of 11. Two or more fouls in 6 out of 11 as well. So he draws a good matchup against Yates. His data is good, and it's the same for Yates. If we actually look into Bruno Guimaraes this season, this FB ref, you can see he's drawn the most fouls in the entire league by quite some distance as well. He's drawn 41 in 10 games, and his teammate Anthony Gordon is second with just 25. So Guimaraes definitely wants a target for fouls drawn. And that's actually my first potential angle for this game. It's for Guimaraes to draw over 2.5 fouls, which is priced at 2.0 with Paddy Power. Understandably, the lines that we've got so far are very, very short for fouls, but that is one that stands out given that it's landed in every away game so far, and in 80% of games this season for Guimaraes, so 80% hit rate, priced at 2.0. I make that pretty good value. On a similar note, looking to take advantage of his matchup with Ryan Yates, he's priced at 2.25 with Bet365 to commit 2 or more fouls, which is again a nice price, slightly above the sort of market average 365, so they could shorten. Also, Joe Linton to commit 2 or more fouls at 1.66 with Bet365 is slightly short to take as a single, but sort of a price that stands out given his sort of ridiculous data this season. One thing I will mention though is for Joe Linton, he typically sees a boost in fouls when playing at home and a boost in fouls when playing against sort of bigger opposition. So maybe one to ignore for him just based on that. Guimaraes versus Forest fouled. Yeah, exactly. So Z, thank you for that comment. Basically just saying that the Guimaraes to be fouled over 2.5 times has landed in 5 out of 5 games against Forest. So head-to-head data looks fantastic. Season data so far looks fantastic, and he's priced at 2.0. So really liking that as a single. That is just one to watch. I think potential alternative angles would be to wait for sort of foul involvement markets. If we're thinking that Bruno Guimaraes to be fouled is a good price, and Guimaraes to make fouls is a good price, could be looking at sort of the foul involvements just to be a bit more safer. Also, player foul matchups when they open up. I'll be keeping an eye on that. So make sure you're following me on Twitter. Again, probably be posting some of those. So I'll be looking out for sort of Joe Linton to foul Yates, Guimaraes to foul Yates, and vice versa. That will be it for the Forest Newcastle game. And